Hey everyone, good morning. Welcome back to Pine Hollow Auto Diagnostics. Today we have an interesting vehicle. It's another Jeep. This time it's a 2019 Cherokee with 115,000 miles. It's a V6. Here it is, nice clean car. And what's the customer complaint? Well, let's read the customer complaint. He said check engine lights on, it's running a little rough. He already took it to a shop. They already did some work and it's still broken. Alright, so this is the invoice from an independent shop here. Let's see what's going on. Customer, after rain, states that the next day icon for service for stop start switch and CL came on the following time. CL is the only one that came on. Sitting idle, the start stop switch will come back on. Customer noted this happened after the bad rainstorm that we got on Monday. Had turned car on next day and the CL came on and idled rough and then stop start switch light came on. Cylinder 5 misfire. Tech switch coil and plug still cylinder 5 still misfired. Fuel injector is getting power and ground. Okay. Tech check compression in 1 and 5. Suspect failed fuel injector. So I don't like this suspect. Need to remove and intake to replace. We can do 1 or all 6 injectors. Extended warranty, blah blah blah. Warranty will pay $300. Customer responsible for $750. Interesting. After technician performed repairs, there's still a slight misfire in cylinder number 5. The misfire is worse when engine is cold, gets better as it warms up, and it's not detected or felt at all as soon as you start driving. Removed rear valve cover to inspect cam, rockers, and lifter, and valve springs all appear good. Performed compression test on cylinder 1, 3, and 5. Number 3 increased steadily on every stroke, ending up at 150. Number 5 takes longer to increase. Sometimes we'll have a momentary non-buildup of pressure on a stroke. Okay, so that's real diagnostics there. They actually did a compression test. Does not go as high as other cylinders. So it looks like there's a compression problem, number 5. Okay. Can see intake valves. They close and release. No air when applying compressed air into cylinder. Can hear a slight flow of air coming out of exhaust. Suspect there's damage or improperly sealing exhaust valve. Next step would be to tear down cylinder head and investigate. It's possible a failing injector may have caused damage to a valve if cylinder got hot. Alright, so they replaced 6 fuel injectors and the grand total is over $1,000. Car's still broken, so it's hard to say if the fuel injector was indeed bad. These fuel injectors apparently do go bad. We've seen this before on a late model Jeep. Usually they set injector codes and they just don't fire. Was this one stuck open and flooding that cylinder with gas? No idea. But let's do a full code scan, take a peek under the hood, fire it up, see how it runs, and take it from there. So I'm logged into Auto Auth with the TOPDON Phoenix Plus, and in the PCM, we have 3 codes: cylinder 5 misfire, bank 2 camshaft 1 position slow response, bank 1 camshaft 2 position slow response. So I'm not sure if those are the intakes or exhausts, but okay, that's what we have in here. Let's take a peek under the hood and do a quick visual inspection. Alright, I mean, this is very clean. Everything looks brand new. I did notice that the coolant is very low. You know, when shops do repairs like this, why don't they just top off the fluids? This car just came from a shop and the coolant is at the bottom. That's not acceptable. Engine oil, is it really over full? Well, we'll run it and recheck it, but at least it has oil in it. Let's fire it up. Look at some misfire counters, see if it's shaking, go from there. So in the PCM menu, Chryslers do not have good misfire data. That is a pain in the butt. So in data stream, we can look up misfire. It's not there. OBD2 monitors, including misfire, you go into here and it's just, you can't search for anything. There's no cylinders 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. it's a real pain in the butt to even read out misfires. And I mean, why would they make this hard on the diagnostician? You know, because Chrysler. So there you go. Cylinder 1, 2, 3, 4 misfire counters. What about 5 and 6? Let's just run it. Let's listen to the exhaust pipe. Definitely not happy. Boom, 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 boom. It's kind of cyclical. It's not every engine revolution. It's definitely very rough. Here, I'll set the parking brake. So it's in drive. Definitely feels like a soft partial misfire. So the first test I want to do is a relative compression test with a sink. That'll at least give us really quick, fast direction on which cylinder has low contribution, if it's a compression problem, and it seems like it is, and then we'll go from there. The customer basically wants to know, does the head need to come off, and then, or can they keep driving it? So indeed, you can only feel the misfire idle. If I load it up a little bit, pretty smooth. Okay, let's get in the shop and do a relative compression test. So if you go into straight OBD2 mode, you can go into mode 6 and look at these numbers here for the misfire counts. So cylinder 1 has 0. Let's go through all of them. Cylinder 2 has 0. Cylinder 3 has 0. Cylinder 4 has 0. Cylinder 5 has multiple misfires right there, so take a picture of that. And cylinder 6, again, 0. So we have a problem in cylinder number 5, it looks like, for sure. Let's do that relative compression test. By the way, let's take a quick look before we jump under the hood at some live data here in OBD2 mode. So long-term and short-term trims, I wonder if there's a bank-to-bank discrepancy. I'm going to fire it up. Bank 1 sensor 1, bank 2 sensor 1. There you go. It's going in a closed loop. It's a knot. If I raise the RPMs up a little bit, they're both about minus 10%. It's not letting me rev up with the brake depressed because new cars. So the fuel trims look okay, a little on the rich side. Let's measure compression. Alright, so first thing, let's double check the engine oil level. It is in the safe zone, that's good. Coolant, I'm going to add some Dexcool, and yes, Chrysler 2013 and newer uses the same orange stuff as GM and Ford. So let's top that off. The only accessible ignition coil is number 5, which is, I guess, good for us because the problem is on cylinder number 5. So we can tap into that, but we need to figure out how to disable fuel or disable spark to make sure the engine doesn't run while we crank it and measure the relative compression. Alright, so ideally I would want to cut power to the fuel injectors to disable starting. However, the fuse that feeds all of the fuel injectors also feeds power to the PCM, so that's not going to work. Fuse F8 25 amp, that's out of the you can't do that. There's no convenient connector to disable injectors, but we want to keep the ignition coils online. That's what we want to use for a sync. We can disable the fuel pump, it looks like. Obviously the relay is integrated into the TIPM, but fuse 43 20 amp, that just feeds the fuel pump module. So let's find fuse F43 20 amp and pull that out, and then we'll hook up to ignition 5 coil control wire, and the firing order is 1 2 3 4 5 6. So we'll be able to sync the starter current with coil number 5 and see if that's our culprit. Alright, so here's a setup for the relative compression test. First of all, I pulled the fuse for the fuel pump. It's right there out of the fuse box. And now 2 channels. First channel is just on the battery. An amp clamp is difficult to get around these cables, so we're just going to measure battery voltage. And if you notice, I have the channel 1 lead on the negative battery post and the negative lead for channel 1 on the positive battery post. That flips the signal around. And you can do it on the scope, you can say invert, but you can just do it on here on the battery. And then the high humps will actually be the lower voltage when the engine's really trying to, has resistance, and that'll be our compression peaks. Channel 2, the red lead, is on cylinder number 5 ignition coil control, and we know the firing order. So let's set up the scope and crank it. Okay, so this is our battery voltage. Now you see it's minus 12.6, and I zoomed in on it, so it's a 3x. I just want a nice pattern on here, and I offset it so it's still on the screen. And then the red trace is going to be our ignition coil number 5 control. So let's see what happens when we crank it. It might start up for a bit and then it'll die. That's what we need. And now let's crank it again. That is a super fast crank, but we should have the information we need right here. So as you can see, the compression, the battery voltage is, it's hard to say where exactly the peaks are. So we're going to doctor up the signal a little bit. First we want to scale it a little more and bring it back up. And then we want to apply a filter. So activate filtering. Make it a little cleaner. You can make it even cleaner than that by dropping the cutoff voltage like so. That looks pretty good. Jack up the scale. So is number 5 compression peak right here when the ignition coil fires, is that lower than the rest? It sure does look lower than the rest. There's number 5. There's number 5. This one seems okay. This one is nah. This one's a little low. So we can move our definitely low right there. Definitely low right there. And right there. So intermittently, this valve seems to be sealing and not sealing. That is crazy. So let's save this waveform and go from there. I mean, you can definitely see, boom, that one might be okay, that one's okay, low, low, low right there, low right there. We can put an in-cylinder pressure transducer number 5 and do the same check and see if the peaks are not consistent. That's kind of what it sounded like when it was running. Sometimes it would fire. It wasn't a dead hole, but like every 3 or 4 compression cycles, it would be, misfire, misfire, misfire. So that's being confirmed by a relative compression test. Pretty neat. All right, next test I want to do. PHAD pressure transducer hooked up to cylinder number 5. Coil is out. Here's the spark plug. It looks fine, clean. It's iridium NGK. So first I want to do the same cranking test, see what the peaks look like, and then we'll re-enable the fuel pump and run it and see what the compression peaks look like. And that'll be the end of the diagnosis. It certainly looks like a compression problem on cylinder number 5. It's intermittent, so it has to do with the valves. So the head has to come off. That's as far as the customer wants to go. I would not do that repair here. So let's give it a try. Alright, so here's our old waveform. So now channel 2, we want to choose the PHAD Pressure Transducer 265 PSI. And we can bump up the scale to -25 to 225. There's our 0 mark. Right there. Let's crank it over. That is so cool. Alright, this is the coolest compression waveform I've probably ever seen in terms of capturing an intermittent problem. It's happening during cranking. So right there we have a low hump. Sure enough, on the battery voltage we see the exact, same event. Right there, again, same event. Another low one. Some of them are decent. They're going up to about 75 psi, or almost up to 100. So my question is, was there really anything wrong with the fuel injectors to begin with, or was this just a valve problem? You tell me. They replaced 6 injectors. The guy paid $1,000. It's still misfiring. Have you ever seen a bad injector cause a valve issue? I don't know how badly it was misfiring before. Apparently one day it just started up after a rainy day and it ran rough. So, go figure. But here we have concrete evidence that the problem is with the valves. Not with the piston, not with anything else. Intermittent compression problems always have to do with the valves. Now, how is this physically possible? That's my question. Is the valve seat messed up and sometimes it's kind of rotating and sometimes sealing, sometimes not sealing? Maybe, maybe not. We could look in there with a Boroscope, maybe bar the engine over until the valves are open and see what's going on there. But this is nuts. But the oscilloscope and pressure transducer in this case is very, very definitive. Alright, so last test I want to do is actually run this thing with the pressure transducer in cylinder number 5. So we won't need channel A anymore. We'll turn that off. I re-enabled the fuel pump. So here we go. It should start right up. Look at this. Intermittent, up and down, up and down, up and down. So the compression peaks are varying. Let's bump this up a little bit. From about 60 psi to 45 psi. And it's cyclical. Have you guys ever seen this? And this is exactly what we heard on the exhaust pipe. Smooth and then pa-pa-pa, pa-pa-pa, pa-pa-pa. Insane. So is the valve rotating that fast and sealing and not sealing? So put down in the comments what you think physically is happening in this engine. And how do we determine exactly what's happening? I mean, it has to be a valve issue. Yes, so the cylinder has to come off. Yes, I'm just curious of what can happen so cyclically, so predictably, to raise and lower the compression on just one cylinder. So put your best guess down in the comments. I don't know if I'll ever get to find out, but this is just neat. Alright, a little bonus footage here. I got a Boroscope in cylinder number 5, just looking at the valves. So there's an intake valve. Here are the two exhaust valves. And I know we're not going to see the problem. You know, they both look fine. They're the same color. This thing needs a valve job. That's what the data is showing. Maybe the seat right there looks a little weird. Maybe there's something going on, but we don't know what caused this. I'm gonna have to ask the customer if there was an improvement after the first shop replaced all 6 injectors. If there wasn't, obviously they weren't on track. If there was, then perhaps an injector went bad and it was spraying too much fuel, but yeah, so we'll leave it at that for now. Really appreciate everyone watching. Check out the PicoScope files in the description. You can download the software for free and just view those and see how powerful an oscilloscope and a pressure transducer can be in diagnosing these problems. So thanks a lot for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.